Hello, and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is 2 in the morning, June 25th, 2025. That's 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode 366 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. Words I have not spoken for 6 months, I guess exactly. Or would that be 7 months? No, I think it would be 6 months, right? My last episode was December 25th, 2024. And here I am again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. There is a lot of history I've got to cover, a lot of catch-up. I mean catching up, not ketchup as in Heinz ketchup, although I'm a huge fan of ketchup. I love it on burgers and fries. Oh my gosh. Where do I even begin to summarize what has happened in my life in the last 6 months and why I am doing another podcast episode? I do have to say, it was completely spontaneous. Completely spontaneous. I had zero plans. I didn't know if I was ever going to record another podcast episode after I ended my daily podcast goal of 2024. And something just sparked in me. It's 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am currently in Bloomfield, New Jersey, which is about, 10 miles away from New York City. I moved from Arizona back in February to the East Coast to really be close to New York City. I just tell people I moved to New York, which is actually probably an insult to New Yorkers because I live in New Jersey, and there's a bit of an ego that New Yorkers have, and they kind of shit on New Jersey people. But as far as I'm concerned, I moved to New York. And the last 6 months of my life have just been completely unpredictable and absolutely incredible. I've had some of the most remarkable experiences of my lifetime as a comedian, as a performer, as an actor. And I can't even begin to summarize, comprehend, or express what has happened. And I'm going to do my best, although I just said I can't, but I will anyway. Forgive me, I haven't done this in 6 months. I'm a little rusty. I think I was probably a lot more charismatic 6 months ago when I was recording a podcast episode every single day. So let's back up. Let's back it up. Who the hell am I? Why am I doing a podcast? Why was there 6 months between my last episode and this episode? Why am I doing it again? What has happened? Let's take it back. So, I am Paul Green. I am a stand-up comedian. I'm an actor. I'm an improviser. I'm a musician. Overall, I'm a dreamer. I go for dreams. I love dreams. I love people who go for dreams. I believe in them. I have found more joy in my life identifying big goals and big dreams and going for them with everything that I got and learning everything that I learn on the way and having all the experiences and having all the ups and downs and the victories and the struggles and the lessons learned and the relationships that are made on the way. And about just over a year and a half ago, I found myself living back in Arizona, pretty much the state that I was raised. And I was living in Hollywood for 7 years before that. And before Hollywood, I was pretty much in Arizona for most of my life. And when I moved to Hollywood in 2015, it was really the first time ever in my life that I made a conscious decision that I was going to go for what I wanted in life, regardless of any outside noise, regardless of practicality, regardless of probability of success, regardless of the fact that I was pushing my mid-30s. I had no agent. I had no credits. I didn't know anything about Hollywood or acting or getting in movies or getting on television. I had 1 year of stand-up comedy under my belt. I had about 10 minutes of pretty shitty, unremarkable stand-up comedy. I had about 6 years of improvisational comedy experience. And I up and moved to Hollywood to go for it. And spent 7 years on Hollywood, had all kinds of ups and downs. I ended up, after 7 years, moving back to Arizona for a relationship that ended up not working out. And found myself in Arizona in a bit of a holding pattern, trying to figure out if I was done really going for my dreams as a performer, as a comedian, as an actor, if I was just going to pin down roots in Arizona and try to make my dreams come true in my hometown. I was very happy in Arizona. All my friends and family are there. It's home. I love it there. I didn't really have an inclination to want to leave Arizona. And about 2 years ago, when I was living in Arizona, I took a trip to New York City. I had been to New York before, but on like limited time, so I didn't really get a chance to like really do the city, you know? And this opportunity presented itself for me to go to New York, and so I spent a week in New York City, and I fell in love with the city. And I have a distinct memory of walking down McDougal Street in Greenwich Village in New York City. I had just seen a show at the Comedy Cellar, which is one of the most iconic stand-up comedy clubs in the nation, if not the world. Any famous stand-up comedian that you can name by name has performed at the Comedy Cellar. That particular night, I went to the Comedy Cellar, and Amy Schumer dropped in and did a celebrity set. She wasn't even on the lineup. She just popped in and gave us all a surprise. And it was the funniest I have ever seen Amy Schumer, who I think is hilarious. And by the way, a brilliant actress. I think she's underrated as an actress. Every movie that I've seen her as the lead, man, she crushes it. So anywho, I'm walking down McDougal Street. I'm seeing just throng of people. It is so active. It's so hip. It's just this vibe and this energy. I'm seeing some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. Throngs of them. And I'm going, yeah, I think I might need to move here. But it's New York City. And of course, I'm like, oh, geez, it's so expensive. How can I make it work? I'm not really making any money as a performer. I still have a day job, and whatever. I actually pull up apartments.com while I'm walking on McDougal Street, leaving the Comedy Cellar, and I'm going, how much are these apartments really? And I pull up apartments.com and I just do like hey, how much are the apartments around where I am right now? And I think the cheapest one I saw was like $4,000 a month for like a closet or something, And I went, yeah, well, okay, that makes sense. But something clicked in me, and I went, man, it would be cool. Man, it would be cool to figure out a way to live here. That was 2023. So around that time, I had also started really experimenting with the business side of stand-up comedy. And I started self-producing shows. I started advertising my shows a lot more aggressively. I was getting a lot more active on social media. I produced my own shows down in Tucson, Arizona. I lost thousands of dollars. It didn't go well. But I was just in a state of exploration and in a state of trying to figure out if I could actually make a career as a comedian in Arizona. Now, as part of that show that I produced down in Tucson, that I lost thousands of dollars on, I had an opportunity to go on a podcast down there. I had met some people at like a networking event who do a podcast. I went on their show, and it was like a food show, like a Tucson, like local restaurant show, and they would bring on dishes and then be like, oh, this dish tastes good. This is Billy Bob's Barbecue down in Tucson. Go check them out. Oh, this barbecue's delicious. Oh, this is the Mexican food place off of 3rd Street or whatever, right? And then they just had me on there, and then I just started riffing, so I was just kind of being Mr. Comic Relief on the podcast. After that podcast, the guy hosting it, who I can see his face, but I can't think of his name, which is breaking my heart that I can't give him name recognition right now off the top of my head. Really cool guy. I guess not cool enough for me to remember his name. I feel like an ass right now. Anyway, after the show, he says, you have a really great voice and you're really good at talking. You should be doing a podcast. Now, truthfully, at that point in my life, I had thought about doing a podcast several times and just never quite got the gumption to get up and do it. So I decided that I was going to start a podcast, and I made a challenge to myself that I wanted to record a podcast episode every single day for a year. And I had no plans beyond that. I didn't know what it was going to be about. I didn't understand the technology. I mean, I knew nothing about doing a podcast. I just was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it daily. And the doing it daily really was more of a personal goal of mine to really combat one of my greatest weaknesses as a human being, which is consistency. Now, I have a mad ADHD brain. I am habitually horrible at habits. I am one of those, like, if you take the personality test and it's like, I'm whatever guy who would like start a million projects and finish none of them, which has really proven a significant challenge in my life. That, that's kind of my personal thing that I have to overcome, because as I have learned in this life, success is almost always on the other side of some sort of consistent, laborious, mundane daily work ethic, which I did not seem to possess. And I said to myself, Self, if you're going to do this, make this an opportunity for you to combat your struggle with doing something daily every single day, regardless of convenience or setbacks or anything else. Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, anybody can do something if they have all the time in the world, but any sort of routine, like, going to the gym. It's like, if you want to get in shape, go to the gym every single day. You want to run a marathon? Run every single day. You want to get good at an instrument? Practice every single day. You want to get good at stand-up comedy? Go to open mics every single day. You want to be good at singing? Sing every single day. Want to be good at acting? Act every single day. Want to get good at cooking? Cook every single day. Want to get good at writing computer code? Write computer code every single day. Oh, but what if something comes up? What if you get sick? What if you blah, 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 blah? Guess what? Do it anyway. Anybody who I know who's ever had success in anything, they do it every day, no matter what. I have never been good at that. So, I said to myself, Self, do this podcast and do it every single day. Release an episode every single day for 1 year. Then after a year, then you can look at it and decide and determine if this is something that is beneficial. Is it moving the needle for you? Is this something that you want to take more seriously? Because obviously, if I'm doing it every day, there's just not a lot that I can put into the production side of things, and I was aware of that. And so the production quality was very minimal. I tried to film every single day, but I didn't end up doing that. I ended up probably filming, I was on video maybe 30-40% of the time. Most of my episodes, like this one, were just audio. The reason this one is audio and not filmed, because it's 2 a.m. and I'm laying shirtless in bed in a room in New Jersey, and I have no visual studio set up. When I was in Arizona, I had a podcast room, and I set up like a brick background, and I had like I had a big sign that had my logo. I tried to have like a podcast studio, and I had 2 chairs in there, and sometimes I had a plant, and sometimes I would have guests. Like, I was trying to experiment with trying to make it like a visual video podcast, and I did okay, but not great on the video side. But I did try to do an episode every single day. Now, I say try because I did not succeed. I did miss some days. And then there were a couple of periods of time where maybe I'd miss a couple of days. However, I never went more than maybe 3 days. And then there came sort of a second wave. I did pretty good, though. I think I popped out maybe over 200 episodes, maybe even close to 250 episodes daily. Like, I didn't miss a day for 250 days. Then a bunch of shit happened. I was traveling. I got tired. I got a little burned out. Blah, 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 blah. And then, 1 day stretched into 2 days, and then 2 days stretched into 3 days. And I was like, I got to do this podcast again. And then I started to kind of doubt myself and just decide, well, I already missed a day, so I missed my goal. So maybe I should just can the whole thing. I did, I went through all of that sort of mental gymnastics. And then I was just like, no, Paul, don't turn misdemeanors into felonies. That became a little phrase that I coined for myself. Don't turn misdemeanors into felonies. Just get back on track and reset the goal. And so I did. And I think all in all, if I remember correctly, I think I missed maybe 25 days out of the 365. So, in other words, my 365th episode, I think, was 25 days. It took me 300 and what's the math on that? 390? Is my math right? Yeah, so I think it took me 390 days to record and release 365 daily podcast episodes. So obviously some of them weren't daily. So when I ended that 365th episode back on December 25th, 2024, I didn't really have a plan, and I didn't really know if I was ever going to start this up again. And honestly, I had no plans of starting it up today, but just something sparked into me. Again, it's 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, June 25th, 2025. I'm approaching my 44th birthday, which is on Saturday. And I just wanted to share. So much has happened in the last 6 months that I want to talk about. So, let's catch up here. So I finished that last episode, and the new year hits January, and I am looking at the upcoming year, and for some reason, New York just was calling to me. And I just started to think to myself, I love Arizona. I've had an incredible time. My family and friends are here, incredible relationships. But nothing is really grounding me here. And I just started to think to myself, okay, what would it take to move to New York? Sure, maybe I can't afford to live in Manhattan, but it's the most populated city in America, probably one of the top in the world. How are they all doing it? Are they smarter than me? Are they richer than me? Better looking? Well, some of them are. I saw them when I was walking down Greenwich Village. And so I just started investigating. I started looking at apartment websites. I started looking at room share websites. I just started looking at different options. Where could I live? Could I live in Jersey? Could I live in Queens? Could I live in Staten Island? What do the rents look like there? Could I have a car? Could I drive? How long would it take me to get to the Comedy Cellar? In my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to go out to New York and I'm just going to start kissing ass at all the comedy clubs and doing open mics and get to the Comedy Cellar. And so I would literally look at like a neighborhood, and then I would Google how long would it take me to get from this neighborhood that this apartment or this room is renting, and how long would it take me to get to the Comedy Cellar? How long would it take me to drive there? How long would it take, the subway and all of that stuff? And then I looked over at all of these places for rent in New Jersey, and I started to realize, wow, it's actually sometimes faster to get to the Comedy Cellar from Jersey than from some of these places for rent in New York. Interesting. So, while I'm starting to investigate all of this, I start talking to my people, talking to my mentors, and just start saying, hey, I'm thinking about moving to New York. And of course, everybody had their thoughts and opinions on that. Mostly very positive, mostly like, dude, go for it. If you can make it work, go for it. What do you have to lose? So I end up finding a room for rent in a house in New Jersey, and owned by a woman, and she's widowed, little older. She says in her ad, she goes, I have this piano in my living room, and I would love it if I could find a roommate to fill this empty room in my house. She has a couple of roommates, and it'd be cool if they could play the piano. And I thought, oh, that's funny. I happen to play the piano. So I reach out to her. Now I'm going to skip a ton of details because it's now almost 3 a.m. and I could literally talk about these last 6 months for hours and hours and hours. But what ends up happening is she tells me that she's written her own independent original musical, and there's actually a role in it for a singing waiter who plays piano. She goes, do you sing? And I go, well, I sing well enough. So I end up moving into her house and getting booked in a musical that she wrote. Now, again, I'm skipping so many details here. But pretty much from the time that I started to think about moving to New Jersey or moving to New York, which was about early January, it started to pop into my mind like really strongly about the first or second week of January. And on February 8th, I packed up everything, threw away a bunch of stuff, and threw everything into a car, no furniture, pretty much just clothes, and drove across the country and arrived in New Jersey on, I think it was Valentine's Day. I think it was February 14th. I move in and I start working on the musical with also now my roommate. And about a month after moving out here, I get a random text message from an old colleague of mine who I hadn't talked to in probably 2 years. I say colleague, he's a event producer, an event coordinator. He used to live in Texas, and he used to book me to do these corporate gigs, like corporate hosting out in Texas. And we had worked on some other projects as well. Nothing that had really come to fruition, but we have stayed in touch. I've known him for about 10 years. I met him randomly 10 years ago. And I get this text message, and he goes, hey, Paul, I know it's been a long time, but I wanted you to know I was talking to these producers who are producing an Off Broadway musical in New York, because, that's where Off Broadway is. And there's a role in this musical that they are trying to cast, and I think you would be perfect for it. I told them that I think you would be willing to travel from Los Angeles to New York to perform in this musical. Yeah, it had been so long since we talked, he thought I was still living in Los Angeles. And I text him back, and I say, funny you should say that, because I just moved to New York last month. So, I audition for a musical called Mike and Mindy's Wild Weekend Jam. And I book a role in an off-Broadway musical 1 month, it's probably 2 months, by the time all of the auditions and stuff happened, after moving to New York. And then, right around that time, I get a casting notification that there's a theater in Staten Island, New York, that is putting on the Young Frankenstein musical. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Young Frankenstein movie with Gene Wilder, the Mel Brooks movie, but they turned it into a musical about 20 years ago, released it on Broadway. It's not on Broadway anymore, but, now theaters can buy the rights to it. So this theater in Staten Island had bought the rights. And I'm like, oh, that would be really fun to go audition for that. I don't even know what the music is or anything about it, but sounds fun. And I'm thinking, well, if anything, they'd probably maybe book me as Igor, because I'm bald and kind of weird or whatever. So I show up at the audition, and they go, oh, well, what role would you like to audition for? And I'm like, oh, well, I'll audition for Igor, and, if you want, I'd be happy to read for Dr. Frankenstein, the lead, as well. They're like, oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and read for Dr. Frankenstein. So I read a couple scenes, and then they go, oh, can you sing? And I said, sure. And so before the audition, I had gone to YouTube, and I found a video recording of the whole musical. And so I actually learned, they wanted like 8 bars. So I learned 8 bars of one of the songs that Dr. Frankenstein sings. And so I sing the 8 bars, and they go, great. And then the next day they email me, and they're like, we would love for you to play Dr. Frankenstein. So I'm like, I've been in New York for like 3 months, and I've booked the lead in one musical. I've booked a supporting role in an independent musical of my roommate, and I booked another supporting role on an Off Broadway musical. I've been here for 4 months, and I've now done 3 musicals. And by the way, I've almost done no comedy. I did a couple open mics and like a bringer. And so the Off Broadway musical started rehearsals last month. And on the first day of rehearsal, they give me the address. I punch it into my GPS. I take a bus into the city from New Jersey, hop on the subway. I don't really know where I'm going. I'm just following my GPS. I walk to the theater, and it's called the Players Theater. Guess what street the Players Theater is on? McDougal Street, or maybe it's MacDougal Street. Guess what is literally next door to the Players Theater? The Comedy Cellar. Since we've been rehearsing, every single day, I go into Manhattan, Greenwich Village, and I perform a musical next door to the Comedy Cellar, the very Comedy Cellar that 2 years ago, I saw a show where Amy Schumer showed up and was walking down that very sidewalk and asked myself, I wonder if I could ever live here. Mostly inspired by the beautiful women walking around Greenwich Village. And here I am. And the entire musical, Mike and Mindy's Wild Weekend Jam, that I am currently performing in, next door to the Comedy Cellar, the whole musical is about going for your dreams. It's about Mike and Mindy are like a young married couple, and they're both singer-songwriters who are going for it, trying to make it in the music biz, and they're, he's a plumber on the side, and she's a hairdresser to make ends meet, and and they're just struggling and pushing through, and the whole musical is about going for your dreams. And I'm in this musical, and I'm performing an off-Broadway musical next door to the Comedy Cellar. I mean, I can't even begin to comprehend how that even happens. But it happened, and I'm living it every single day. And it has been by far one of the most fulfilling, gratifying, emotionally uplifting, and inspirational chapters of my life. And the people that I'm working with on this musical are incredible. And as I've been talking, by the way, I never planned these podcasts. I never did 6 months ago. I didn't plan this. I didn't even know I was going to do a podcast, and I was literally just laying in bed and just something hit me. It's just like, yeah, maybe it's time. You know what's really fascinating to me is I filmed 365 episodes of that podcast. I haven't posted anything in 6 months, but when I logged back into I have a software, like a website where I upload the audio files, and then it like distributes them across all of the podcast distribution channels, iTunes and Spotify, and there's like a handful of other ones. It said I had like 100 downloads this last month. And I'm like, who the hell is downloading these episodes of my podcast? Just me talking about myself, mostly. I had a few guests, which was really fun. So anyway, as I've been thinking about this, I'm like, man, I wonder if I can get some of the cast members and the director and the producer, the songwriters, to maybe do an interview on the old Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I don't know. I'm just feeling inspired, and I'm feeling open, and I'm feeling that there's something happening here, and this is just an opportunity for me to put some positive energy back on the scale of life can be good, and good things can happen, and incredible things can happen, and miracles can happen, and synergy can happen. And I want to share that. I want to document that. I want people to hear that. Whatever you're going through, whatever's going on, there's enough people, talking about politics and war and sound bites and all the horrible things, and the debates, and everybody trying to be smart and make other people look dumb, and yeah, there's plenty of that. And at my core, I'm a dreamer and a believer in going for what's in your heart, and trusting what's in your heart, and trusting who you are, and whatever it is that you really truly want to experience and to achieve, and to find the courage to go for it. Because, man, it takes a lot of fucking courage, and a lot of, at least for me, very discouraging and knock the wind out of your sails experiences. And but here I am, living in New York, New Jersey, and, performing in an Off Broadway musical with incredibly talented singers and songwriters and dancers and actors and artists. And it's just been so miraculous. So I don't know how often I'm going to be doing the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I'm going to have to. Maybe I don't have to. If I start getting a consistent listenership, I know it's like really important that they know when your next episode's going to be so people can look forward to it. I'll tell you this, I'm probably not going to do daily. Maybe I'll try to commit now to weekly or maybe twice a week. I think Bill Burr does twice a week. I think he does Monday and Thursdays. But yeah, I want to start sharing this leg of the journey and see if I can get some of my castmates maybe to come in and get a chance to introduce all of you to them, because they're just remarkable. Just remarkable. And so there you go, everybody. Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, episode 366. One more than a year's worth of daily episodes. It's been a 6-month break. So much has happened in this last 6 months. The Young Frankenstein musical is already done. Rehearsed it, performed it. We did 6 shows. All of them were great. It was so incredible to be able to play the lead role. I was the last guy. I was the last guy coming out for the curtain call. And it was so incredible being able to learn a musical theater lead role. What the hell's going on here? Thought I was a stand-up comedian, and now I'm a musical theater nerd. So I don't know what's going to happen stand-up comedy-wise. I still love stand-up comedy. I still want to do it. I'm just the universe is leading me towards musical theater and acting, which is really what I wanted to do from the beginning. When I moved to Hollywood, what I wanted to do was to get a recurring role on a sitcom. Yet something always pulled me towards stand-up. It's just kind of weird. When I was in Hollywood, I wanted to do acting, and yet I kept getting pulled towards stand-up. And when I moved to New York, I wanted to do stand-up, yet now I'm getting pulled towards musical theater. And you want to know what? I just trust that instinct now. I just trust the path that's calling to me. And I just believe that whatever path I'm on is the one I'm supposed to be on. And it feels right. It feels fun, and it feels exciting. And I don't mind the work, and I don't mind the grind. I don't mind going to rehearsals for 6 hours after working a full-time job and rehearsing a scene over and over and over and over again, and rehearsing a song over and over and over again, and rehearsing choreography. I'm dancing. Who knew? So anyway, I hope all of you are doing well. I hope you are pursuing your dreams. You're having incredible, miraculous experiences. And I feel like I want to do this podcast again. I say again, I feel like I want to start it up again, probably not daily, but I'll start to fill out a frequency that feels right and feels sustainable. And see what happens. But till then, anybody out there who has been missing the Paul Green Comedy Podcast or has been listening and keeping up, thank you so much for listening. And I hope anything that I say, if anything, like I said, just puts a little weight on the positive energy side of the scale, because Lord knows there is enough negativity out there, and enough fear, and enough hatred, and enough division, and enough of all of that. So the ethos, is that the right word, that guides my life is go for your dreams, man. Go for it. Go for it. If it's in your heart and you want to do it, you feel called, you feel inspired, and man, the journey is just so unpredictable. But I don't think you'll ever regret going for it. But I do think you have a much higher probability of regretting not going for it. What's that phrase? We regret the things we don't do far more than the things we do, even if the things that we do don't turn out the way that we hope or anticipated. And by God, I can testify that I have tried so many things that did not go the way I thought it would. And I don't think anything has ever gone the way I've ever thought it would, ever. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this thing and I think it's going to be XYZ, and it just never ever is. But that is the whole point. If you didn't go for it, then the answer is you don't know. You doubt now. So anyway, sorry, I got a little high horsey there, a little self-help preachy there. Not my intention. I'm just full of love. I'm full of ambition. I love all of you. I hope you're all doing well. I hope your life is finding you in good places. And if not, hopefully my podcast, if nothing else, can maybe just give you a little love, give you a little boost, give you a little inspiration. And hopefully if things are not great right now, you can get a little courage and a little inspiration to look forward to brighter days, my dear friends. All right, let's call it there. Thank you for listening to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, episode 366, June 25th, 2025. 3 in the morning, probably about now, somewhere around there, Eastern Standard Time. Coming to you live from Bloomfield, New Jersey. We'll just call it New York City. Can I get away with that? It's 10 miles away and there's a couple rivers between me, but you know, I can get to Manhattan in like 25 minutes during off-peak times, okay? I'm really freaking close to New York. All right, my friends, I love you all so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon. I don't know how soon. Probably not tomorrow. All right. Thank you for listening.